I'm just going to wait for you guys to tune in. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Oh, I forgot to put a title. Come on in. Come on in. Good morning. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If this is your first time, definitely comment in there so I can shout you out. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Ice Low Haynes, Peaches. Good morning. Camway Designs. Good morning. Gabby from Texas. Good morning. Cash Love. Good morning. Philly. What's up? Black Daddy. Good morning. Bishop Cornell. Good morning. Let me introduce myself. My name is Aisha Chidole, and I'm an immigration lawyer. I present clients all over the U.S. with their family and humanitarian-based immigration. If you have any needs for that, whether you're in the U.S. or outside of the U.S., we're happy to assist you. My phone number here is 407-995-6567. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. Good morning from Belize. Oh my goodness, I wish I could be in Belize right now. And I saw somebody else from Brazil. What's up, Decolonize? I would love to be in Brazil too. Good morning, Annie Luxury, Brittany from Florida, and Mr. Well from Ohio. Stacey says, big up the baddest immigration lawyers. Thank you so much. Good morning, Dream Queen of Hearts from Florida. Good morning. Shantoy is like, let me just go right straight into the questions. Good morning. When it says the petition of alien relative has been approved and case closed, what does it mean? It means that your I-130 was approved. Now, it depends on where you're planning to finish the process of your case. So if you have an I-130, you would either have requested to do adjustment of status here in the U.S. or to do consular processing. If you do consular processing, you have basically a small window in which you can what am I trying to say? Basically, you need to complete the NVC application, the National Visa Center application, or they can close your case. So I'm not really sure what stage or where your case is, but that might be something you're dealing with. Amaka Adria from Los Angeles on YouTube. Good morning. Latoya on Facebook. Good morning. Adirin Nokun says, a friend of mine in the UK just started a business in Atlanta and wants to know how he can get a green card on that part. I don't handle business immigration, so I don't really talk much about business immigration. But one of the things I'll just give you just like a basic, he might want to look into is to see if he qualifies for an E2 and EB1 visa. With the EB1 visa, there's certain investment dollars required, which usually is upwards of $1 million, and being able to hire at least 10 U.S. citizens to work there. And then if it's an E2, he has to be part of an E2 country. So based on your name, you sound Nigerian. I don't know if your friend is Nigerian, but I can tell you that Nigeria is not one of the countries on the E2 list. With the E2, you're not going to get a green card, but you're going to be able to get visas and be authorized to work, continuously as long as you have that business, and the amount is not as much depending on where he's from. But again, I don't handle business, so probably better off talking to a business immigration lawyer. If a U.S. citizen dies after a month of marriage, can you still petition as a widow of a U.S. citizen? I'm so sorry to hear that, if that is something that happened to you personally. But the answer is yes. The most important thing is proving that you have a good faith marriage. So even if your spouse passes away, you can still do a widower petition or a widow petition as long as you can show that you did have a good faith marriage. A lot of times, if you guys just got married just a month ago, you might not have, you might have things prior to the marriage. So like if you guys were dating and doing things and traveling, and their family members who know about your relationships that can write affidavits, other things, that you can use to support the claim that, this was your spouse and unfortunately your spouse passed away. Is USCIS increase of the prices for filing helping speed up the process at all? I will say, though, that we've definitely seen some improvement in certain areas. but not necessarily based on this increase in pricing. We already started seeing that from last year in marriage-based cases and employment authorizations where they were taking much longer, like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. They're moving much quicker. There was a time where basically you're waiting at least 9 months to get those, but now really most people without any issue are staying within 4 to 9 months. I would say of getting that. So it's moving. I mean, there are of course certain kinds of cases that will always take a long time, like VAWA cases, TU, asylum cases, just because those are really document intensive. There are personal statements being written, affidavits being written, legal briefs being written. So the review process just takes a longer time than, certain other types of cases like a fiancé visa or a marriage-based case that don't have those other components associated with them. Trisha K, good morning. Baker from Miami, good morning. Just received my prima facie. How long for me and my kid to get the SSN? Gabby, congrats on getting your prima facie determination letter. For those of you who don't know what a prima facie determination letter is, that is a letter that you get if you submit a VAWA application and USCIS believes that you've met the preliminary requirements for approval. With a prima facie determination letter, you're not going to get a social security number. If you did add an adjustment of status application and a work permit based on that adjustment of status application to your VAWA, then you will fall in the window of the 4 to 9 months that I talked about. Again, this is the average. It means that sometimes you could get it before or sometimes after, but most people will fall in that window. Could you repeat back your number? My number is 407-995. Let me write it in here. 40. My nails are so long that I can't even write it. Okay, let me try and write it here. 995-6567. If you also check on my profile, it's right there on my profile. And any of the platforms. Let me pin it real quick, guys. Sorry, it's so hard for me to type numbers and multitask. Okay, so it's pinned in there, so you should be able to see it. Okay, so this question says, U.S. citizen filed for Sibling since 2011, so that puts you at about 13 years. Last check of the case status is still pending. How long does it take usually? So basically, it's different for everyone. I will do a quick check for you and tell you right now, based on June's visa bulletin. Let's see what we're looking at for you and what you might have to wait. Just give me a second for my computer to turn on. So for you right now, they're processing cases in 2007, July 2007. So you're probably looking at a 3-4, so about 4-ish year wait for you. But for those of you who, let's say, submit a sibling petition today, you will be subtracting 2024 from 2007 to do the math to see how long yours will take. Okay, let me go back to my live. What are the signs that you're close to a decision on VAWA running for 29 months now? I mean, I don't know that there are any signs, or anything like that, but generally, you are definitely close to a decision. Sometimes if you're around that window, so 24 months is about what, 2.5, almost 2.5 years. Right? Let me do my math correctly. It's almost 2.5 years. Most people, it takes them 2 to 3 years. So you're very close. You're very close to a decision or very close to a substantial RFE. And what I mean by that is, with our applications, there are 2 times that you can get RFEs, or you typically would get an RFE. An RFE can come before the prima facie determination letter, which is a kind of, the RFE will look different because they need certain things to be able to qualify you preliminary, for a pre-approval of VAWA. And then towards the end, when they're now reviewing your file, like towards the end, you will get a substantial RFE. Those substantial RFEs will go into whatever else they need. And typically, let me just prefix by saying, not everyone is going to get an RFE. You shouldn't, we don't want people getting an RFE, but I'm saying if you're around that time and you get a substantial RFE, it means that your file is ripe for the picking. They're reviewing your file and they will make a decision very quickly after you submit it. Otherwise, no news is good news. Still within the window. If you pass the window, then you definitely want to reach out to USCIS. I would say you can even probably reach out to USCIS right now, since it's been about 2.5 years. I'm just saying, checking up, on the status of my case. This is what's, been pending for this amount of time. Can I get a decision? Because you don't have anything to lose. How long does it take for you to get a perinatal? I don't understand what that question is. I'm a U.S. citizen, but I gave birth to my son in Nigeria, but we're both back in the U.S., but I want to bring his nanny over. Should I apply for a work visa, a regular visa for her? Which do I send more of a chance? It's very difficult, actually, for U.S. citizens to bring nannies from outside the U.S., but again, this is an employment-based immigration, and I generally don't address those questions. But, if she's here on a regular visa, she's not entitled to work. So she can't work. Sometimes you're going to need to either file for the person through EB3 or as, unskilled, or you can see if you can try a B1 based on business. But generally, most U.S. citizens will have a hard time getting a nanny here and that. But again, I don't do business. I-485 approved, moved to another office, to another field office of jurisdiction. Is that good? Need a little bit more context to be able to answer your question, because if your case was approved and there's nothing to move, then they'll just send you your approval. So I'm not really sure. Did you already get it or what? I'm not sure. Do you think it's a good idea to do VAWA if you got married, but after a month you separated and not enough evidence was made? Always good to get yourself screened to see what you're eligible. VAWA is not really about the timeline. A lot of times they're going to look at things from prior to marriage to post-marriage, including cohabitation. Like, one of the requirements of VAWA is cohabitation. Sometimes people will come to a consult and have really horrendous abuse that's happening. And I ask them, did you guys live together? And, they may not have lived together or have started living together after marriage. But if we can show that you lived together before marriage at some point, that can be used to show cohabitation during that window. So, I would say for you, Jeremy, that it's better to be screened and see what you qualify for. Okay. G Money Black says, can you do a second VAWA? If you qualify, so when I'm assuming that you did VAWA the first time and you were denied, if you were denied, it will depend on if you qualify and you still meet the requirements. Sometimes if someone files a VAWA application and then they get divorced before a decision is made, and then let's say they get denied, and once they make a decision, they've been divorced for more than 2 years, then they're no longer eligible for VAWA if it's with the same spouse. Now, if you did VAWA and you got denied and then you married somebody else and that person was abusive as well, there's nothing that precludes you from submitting a new VAWA application. I have a question. Can getting tickets like red light tickets affect my VAWA case? No. My friend's VAWA was approved on April 1st. Do you know how long it may take to get an RFE for medical or interview? I would say for most people, it can take 1 to 6 months. So if she just got it in April, she still has time, since we just entered June. So it's really just been about, what's that, like 2 full months. But, I would say 1 to 6 months on average. We were seeing it more like around the 6-month mark, but now we're definitely seeing around like month 3. They either send the RFE for medical or an interview. Can I file for my daughter who's here on an overstay visa while she's in the U.S.? I'm a green card holder. Unfortunately, no, you cannot. First of all, there are different requirements. As a green card holder, you didn't specify whether your daughter is a minor, is she under 21, or is she over 21? because those are two different categories in terms of how long you have to wait. But as a green card holder, you can submit her I-130 to lock in her priority date, but you cannot file for her to adjust her status right now because she's not eligible as an overstay and because visas are not available. Can I call to talk to you, please? I don't understand the petition for alien relative. Yeah, please schedule a consultation. My number is pinned right there, 407-995-6567. Okay. Let me answer this question on Facebook. How long after you submit a VAWA case, how soon from that are you likely to get a prima facie letter? For most people, it could take 3 to 6 months on average to get it. After that, we always want to check in to see why they've not received it. And if there's something that USCIS needs, send us an RFE so we can provide that and so that they can give the person their prima facie. Can an I-130 be filed for a parent with a felony charge reported 23 years ago? The I-130 can be filed. Now, the problem is not the I-130. The problem is, are they admissible into the United States if they're outside of the U.S.? So all of this is going to depend on what the charge is. You know, is it a permanent bar to entry into the U.S.? So there are just many variables without knowing more. Yeah. I applied for citizenship last year, March, and they denied my application, and they were supposed to send me a letter, and I haven't gotten the letter. I requested it many times. I guess you didn't finish typing before you hit send. You can do a FOIA, do a FOIA request to get your decision, because usually after a year, USCIS in and of itself will not send it to you, like if you call the number and ask for the denial letter, but you can do a FOIA and request your files, including the denial, okay? Do you charge for a consultation? Yes, we charge $150 for a consultation. Can someone with a permanent resident in the United Kingdom apply for a permanent resident in the U.S.? What will the person do? If you are eligible to apply for a green card in the U.S., you can apply for a green card in the U.S. U.S. is a dual citizenship country, meaning they are not opposed to people having citizenships in other countries. Now, you always have to look at whatever country that you're a citizen of, or you have your permanent resident or permanent residency. Most countries, it's usually fine. But again, I can't speak for any other country other than the United States. But as far as the US, if you are eligible to apply for permanent residency, it doesn't really matter what other country that you have permanent residency in or that you have citizenship, you can apply. Would it be wise to add evidence after submitting a medical RFE for I-485? I'm not really sure what kind of evidence you want. But it just really depends. Like, let me give you an example of when we would add evidence, but we add that evidence with our response. So for instance, like a lot of our cases that are being approved right now, most likely were filed in either somewhere between 2020, early 2020 to when did President Biden enter? So to 2021, I think about April. So a lot of cases that were filed in that window, there was a certain form, the I-64 waiver, that was not submitted because the previous administration removed that, and then they just changed the I-485 form to do the public charge well test forms. So when President Biden came into office, he removed that and said, we're bringing back the I-64 waivers. So what is happening now is most cases that are approved for VAWA and then move to the field office, sometimes they will send an RFE for the medical, and they will not confirm that the person has an I-64W. So after you send the I-64W, after you send the medical, they'll send you another RFE for the I-64W. So what we just do right now is when someone gets a medical request based on an approved VAWA, we just check, did we submit an I-64 in the original filing? If we didn't, we just add it so that they're not sending us an RFE asking us for it, so they can just make the decision right there and then. Any advice for someone taking the bar exam this July? Oh my goodness, Andrew. All the best. I wish you all the best. Here is my advice. First of all, get off any of those, like there's so many of these websites, whether it's Reddit or all this studying, whatever, like people are going to be doing practice tests and they're going to tell you, oh, they're scoring this and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail the bar because these people are scoring this and I'm not scoring that, blah, blah, blah. Ignore them. Just go and study. You have from now till July. So most of the time the bar is in around July. I started studying for the bar. Like I'm going to tell you about my first bar because my first bar was just fresh out of law school. I'm licensed in 3 states, New York, Florida, and Georgia. But when I was taking the New York bar, which at the time, I told myself that I had no other alternative or option. I could not fail this bar because I refused to take a bar again, not knowing that I'll take, more bars in the future. But the point is, so I dedicated, I didn't work during that window. I dedicated my, I would study from 9 till 5 o'clock. Like before that, I would go running to clear my head. Statistics show that, physical activity before studying really opens up and clears your brain. And I will do a lot of multiple test questions, multiple choice questions. And when you do that, make sure you are reviewing the answers to the things that you got wrong, and then circle the things that you guessed that you guess. You're like, well, I'm not really sure of the answer, but I'm just going to circle something. Go and read that because you may have gotten it correct by fluke, but you want to have an understanding because, a lot of people don't have the stamina to, when they're reviewing the answers and starting to look at the wrong ones. But truly, that is the trick to standardized tests. I mean, obviously, I passed my bar exam the first time. The second time I took the bar, for those of you that are going to be like, well, some of us have to work. I was working full time and I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I still passed the bar that time. But instead of doing the 9 to 5, I would come home at 5 and I would actually start studying from 9 till 12 a.m. I'll start from 9 to 12 a.m. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I would study from 9 to 5. And I actually cut our cable. I was like, we have to cut the cable. We have to cut. I don't think they had streaming like that then but my family, well, obviously my kids were babies, but, my husband, has always been so supportive of me and my career. And so it's like, okay, we'll be without cable. And the reason why I cut the cable because, at the time I used to watch a lot of those reality shows like Real Housewives and stuff. And I didn't want anything that would distract me from studying and passing the test. So just tell yourself, this is just 8 weeks of your life. It is so quick. Just do what you need to pass the bar. And I want you to come back here in November, September, whenever you get the result. And I want you to give us the good news that you've passed the bar. I do have to jump off right now. I have another meeting, but I'm wishing you all the best. If I didn't answer your questions, guys, schedule a consult, 407-995-6567. You can also WhatsApp 404-333-8751. All right, guys, bye.